All right, good morning. My name is Jeff Orrock here at the National Weather Service in Wakefield. Special briefing this morning, going to be talking about the risk of flooding. That's going to be the main focus for today, as well as a little bit of a threat of severe weather. We'll talk about that. The main focus is today, but there will be a little bit of a threat even into tomorrow. As far as what's changed from our last briefings, we really have increased. We're saying we have high confidence now of really potential flash flooding in a moderate risk area where we've been outlined for a moderate risk of really excessive rainfall and potential flash flooding. So that's really going to be one of our main focuses here this morning for the briefing. We are in a level 2 risk of severe storms, mainly some wind damage. So we'll talk about that and where we could see some severe storms a little bit later today. And obviously, we've expanded the flood watch for a big portion of the region. So that's kind of been the big changes that we'll highlight here as we go through the briefing. Getting right into the flood watch and where the risk area is for some of the potential, the real excessive rainfall and the potential flash flooding. The whole region here is highlighted in yellow. So really anywhere in the yellow, I mean, there's at least a slight risk of seeing some excessive heavy rainfall, maybe a little bit of flash flooding. When you get in the area in red, the confidence is much higher, where we could actually see some higher, really higher rates, staying over the same location for extended periods of time. Now, don't get too cute with this red line here. This is just kind of a first guess here of the area from the Weather Prediction Center of the area that might see the longest period of excessive heavy rainfall. This could slide a little bit further to the northeast, maybe getting up more towards Tappahannock and the northern neck. So I'll show you some of that. Could even push a little bit further to the east, maybe almost to the edge of Williamsburg. So don't get too cute with where this actual line is drawn. It's just kind of the general area. Some of the heavy rain and flooding might extend a little bit, maybe almost 1 to 2 counties east of even where you see this red line here. And you see, look at the flood watch, and that's kind of how the flood watch has really been drawn. The flood watch really going from Emporia up through Wakefield here to Williamsburg, catching the upper end of the peninsula. And then we have all the Middle Peninsula and Northern Neck in the flood watch, as well as up here in Maryland. And there's a reason for that, not only for the rainfall that we're expecting today, but also the rainfall that we saw yesterday. And so we'll talk more about that. As far as just kind of what's going on right now, I mean, there are no threats right now at all. You look at the satellite radar image from across the country, nothing's going on across us right now. Things are really on the other side of the mountains. You still have this stalled front kind of way out to the west. And so things are just going to blossom over us as the day goes on. Just like yesterday, things developed on the east side of the mountains and progressed, south and east and kind of hung out over central Virginia. That's what's going to happen today. Stuff is just going to start to blow up as the day goes on. So some areas may not get to see it coming. It's just going to blossom and spread across the region as the day goes on. If you look at the satellite image from this morning, you can see mostly, I would say mostly clear. There's some clouds around, but there's no showers and storms around, obviously. There could be a little bit of a weak, there's kind of a cloud band here across parts of central Virginia and getting down into central North Carolina here. And you're starting to see some cumulus clouds firing up here as far as southwest North Carolina. There's some type of weak trough right in here. Kind of, we call it a Piedmont trough, but that's going to kind of be maybe the focus where showers and storms are going to develop. And there's leftover boundaries from yesterday's storms. So, there's the fact that there's cloud cover in here now tells us that's probably where some of the boundaries are right now. And so that's the area that's going to start to develop as the day goes on. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So yesterday we did have some very heavy rainfall. It kind of parked in certain areas. So this is kind of a rainfall analysis really of the entire region. And really anything that you see that's getting into the yellows and even kind of into these almost burnt yellows, you're talking anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of rain, or even 3 to 4 inches of rain. So, parts of the Maryland Eastern Shore got hit pretty hard with anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of rain. Even the Northern Neck, getting out of parts of the Middle Peninsula, you're seeing these yellows. So again, that's getting us into 2 to 3, maybe some pockets of 4 inches of rain here. And then once you get around central Virginia, kind of around the metro and the places across Chesterfield, back towards Powhatan, we definitely saw more widespread 3 to 4 inches of rain. I mean, even upwards maybe of 5. And in fact, if I just pull over the interactive version of this map, I can kind of zoom in a little bit tighter, and you can kind of see where the rainfall just kind of parked. I mean, we've had some pretty heavy bullseyes here, kind of all around the metro. I mean, on average, the metro probably got about 1 to 2 inches of rain on average, but then there's pockets of 3 to 4 in here, and the same thing with the Maryland Eastern Shore. Even though we may not be expecting quite as much rainfall today across Maryland as what we're expecting across central Virginia, there was a lot of rain up here. Not everybody got it, but you look up here towards Cambridge, we had quite a bit of 2 to 3, 4 inches of rain, maybe. Another swath here that goes from almost near Ocean City down, here going across towards the southwest, going out towards the bay. So the ground's wet. That's going to maybe be an issue to kind of help some of the flash flooding potential. Areas that did not see rain yesterday, obviously the southwest and southeast, did not see much rain. So we can take a little bit more rain over down towards Carr Lake and those areas, and maybe down towards Hampton Roads, but we're not expecting quite as much rainfall down there anyway today. So this is the forecast for today, kind of just getting right into it. These are kind of average. The map that you're seeing there is average rainfall amount. So we think the average is going to be 1.5 to maybe 3 inches of rain across central Virginia through the course of today. So everybody should be getting in on some pretty heavy rain. Should be a little bit less up here in Maryland, maybe an inch, inch and a half. You notice the yellow here is getting into about maybe 2 inches of rain. Where that sets up is hard to say. Could we see a little bit more of 2 inches back towards Salisbury and getting back maybe towards Chrisfield? Could you see 2 inches, up here towards Cambridge? You could. So this little pocket of yellow here just suggests there could be an area here where we do see that up to 2 inches of rain or so today across the Maryland Eastern Shore. Worst case could be even a little bit more than that. But again, the really focus right now is definitely across the northern neck down to the middle peninsula across central Virginia, where it rained yesterday. It looks like we're going to have another round of pretty heavy rain. We kind of highlighted this little circle here in red, looking at some of the high res models. They are suggesting that we could see upwards of maybe 3 to 5 inches of rain, worst case, across those areas. So we're going to have to see, how that plays out. There's a lot of different model statistics and things you can look at here, but we saw really high rainfall rates yesterday, 3 inches an hour or higher at times, even 4 inches per hour as far as instantaneous rainfall rates. We think we're going to see that again today. So any location that gets stuck under one of these showers or storms, or if you get hit by 2 or 3 of them and you're experiencing rainfall rates of 3+ inches per hour, you're going to pick up a very quick 3 to 5 inches of rain. So that's why we've kind of highlighted this area here. Just kind of that's the region we're really worried about, where some of that could happen. Even though we're forecasting anywhere from 1.5 to 3, that's kind of the average. And I guess that we could see some reports of 3 inches, maybe upwards of 5 inches, if somebody gets caught under one of these things for very, very long. So that's kind of a watch out, kind of a heads up. This threat may extend a teeny bit here in the northeast, in Maryland Eastern Shore. That's kind of the bigger question mark is does some of this heavier rain bleed up into Maryland Eastern Shore? If you guys up there, I'd definitely say watch the radar trends today and see if some of this heavy rainfall actually bleeds across the bay and maybe locks in between Cambridge and Salisbury and stuff. There are some models that are hinting that we could see a little bit more rainfall, up in this region here. Some models are saying less, some are saying more. So there's probably a little less confidence up here. And I'd say there's better confidence here across basically the area here in Virginia that's highlighted as far as these really excessive heavy rainfall rates. So that is for today with this moderate risk. And really, again, the slight risk for heavy rainfall and flooding is really pretty large. Comes all the way down to the peninsula and almost here to Norfolk. So everybody's going to kind of have to stay tuned today and kind of watch how this plays out, and especially in I-95 corridor west. And I drag that even up to the middle peninsula and northern neck. Like I said, I little concerned about this region up in here. Some of the models really get excited north and east of Richmond, more so than others. So we have to watch that closely. Tomorrow, there's still a risk of some excessive rainfall and flooding. It is less. Now, the problem is going to be, how much rainfall we get today. A lot of the creeks and ditches and things could be full, so it may not take as much rain tomorrow in some areas to cause flash flooding. And we do have that slight risk everywhere. So just something to be very, very cognizant of. Not as bad tomorrow, but still could be a little bit of an issue. Now, just kind of looking at the timing of this, kind of the timing of the showers and storms, it looks like it's going to be a little bit later today, probably not until after about 3 or 4 o'clock before things get going. And so you don't see very high chances of showers in most places until about 3 o'clock and probably after 3 o'clock. in most places. But by the time you get to about, I'd say between 5 and 6, the chances of rainfall really do increase, and they linger into almost about midnight in a lot of spots, some of the higher chances. Of course, notice here at Ocean City, it lingers all night long. So some areas it might take longer to get the rain out, like up here in Maryland, Cambridge. Notice how the rainfall does linger longer up there, where, other places, like you get here towards Richmond, the rainfall does kind of seem like it wants to kind of shut off maybe right around midnight-ish or a little after midnight, and you have lower chances of rain overnight, and then they pick back up again tomorrow. So that's why we're going to have to watch out again. A little earlier tomorrow by noon, by noon, we have that 85% chance of rain, but again, some pretty high chances of rain even tomorrow afternoon. And again, this is just the timing of the thunderstorm, so really geared obviously towards the afternoons and early evening hours. So what I'll do, I'm trying to think the best thing to show here. I'll throw this over here because this is, instead of just looking at the reflectivity, what the radar is going to look like, this is looking at rainfall rates and rainfall amounts. And so, this is actually here this morning, not expecting any rain, obviously. So we're not really showing anything. As we go through in time, this is 2 o'clock this afternoon. It's still not showing much across central Virginia. Maybe a few little, widely scattered showers, maybe kind of trying to develop here across southeast Virginia. Some models do try to develop a few showers and storms ahead of the main batch. See, the main batch is back here more way to the west, really over North Carolina, and maybe starting to develop over southwest Virginia. So maybe some widely scattered showers in the east. As we push into the afternoon, though, this is getting us into about 4 o'clock. You really do notice here the area is just east of the mountains. So this is kind of getting into very close to Louisa, getting back down towards, just west of Carr Lake here, that kind of that edge there. This is where the heavy rainfall is trying to set up and develop. And it could be even a little bit further east than this. It might be getting into, parts of, Goochland and maybe Cumberland, maybe Farmville. You're going to kind of have to watch this, I'd say, by about maybe 5 o'clock, 4 or 5 o'clock. That's where the really heavy rainfall. The red circle is basically suggesting that we could be seeing, rainfall of 3 inches or more in a very, very short period of time. That's the best way to look at that. But you do notice here down towards Hampton Roads, this is kind of a model blend ensemble. It is showing some pockets of heavy rain. So there could be a few little showers and storms popping up here in the afternoon across southeast Virginia that it's not real widespread, but we could see some pockets of heavy rainfall. And that's what you're seeing down here. It's not bullseyeing like 3 inches of rain, but it could be some quick, thunderstorms that come through that give us a good burst of rainfall even in the afternoon. And so this is looking at us about maybe 5 o'clock. As we push into getting into between 5 and 8 o'clock, let me go back to 5 to 8 right here. This ends at about 8 o'clock. You really see the I-95 corridor and west is really, really getting under the gun here. And in fact, the probability of 3 inches, the low probability even extends down to Hampton Roads as showers and storms maybe continue to develop some scattered stuff. And then you have maybe some real numerous showers and storms with a lot of heavy rain that could extend. Again, we talked about Maryland Eastern Shore kind of being on the edge, getting down here through the northern neck, Middle Peninsula, kind of getting here into the Tri-Cities area, and then going back here maybe down towards Carr Lake, Emporia being maybe right on the eastern edge of some of that heavy rain. So this is a pretty heavy axis of rainfall here, pretty elongated. And the stuff's going to be slow moving, kind of making its way to the east, maybe at about 15 miles an hour. And so in a lot of redevelopment. So some places may be experiencing multiple heavy rain events here as we get into, I'd say, between 5 and 8. As you push into a little bit later, this pushes just into, let me stop it there. So this pushes us into about 11 o'clock at night, between 8 and 11. Notice it's still going on. So, this looks like it's going to be a later in the day type of a flood setup where it's going to maybe start to come into the west, like Farmville and Louisa, Goochland, Fluvanna. That might happen as early as, let's say, about 4, but then it's going to slowly make its way east into I-95, let's say by about 8-ish or so. And then here at 11 o'clock at night, it still hasn't moved very far. And that's why we're so concerned about this. It's still looking like, again, maybe get up here towards Dorchester. We have to watch out for that, up towards Salisbury. The northern neck is still stuck in the heavy rain. So is the Middle Peninsula. The Tri-Cities is almost right dead center in this heavy rainfall bullseye. And that extends now all the way down, to Emporia and places west out towards Carr Lake. And, it's extended down even to Williamsburg and starting to even get into Hampton maybe. So we're going to have to watch out for some of these places in the southeast as well. But there's still a lot of concern. that I would say, from the peninsulas all the way down through Richmond and going out kind of into the west. We really have to watch out how this plays out. So that's through 10 o'clock. Take it a little bit later here. This is through about 2 a.m., 1 to 2 a.m. So from 10 at night to, let's say, 2 a.m. is 1 to 2 a.m. in the morning. You're still seeing some pockets of heavy rain, but you don't see those red bullseyes anymore. So the threat should be starting to decrease as far as the heavy rain. The flooding may still be going on, obviously, because the water, it's going to make, if somebody gets 5 inches of rain, it's going to take a while to get rid of that water. So we could still have some flooding going on, but the intensity is starting to decrease a little bit as we push through those early morning hours. And by the time we get to, let's say about 5 a.m., it looks like tomorrow morning things are really starting to kind of break out, break. We're not seeing that heavy rain. Now, as we push into tomorrow morning, there's nothing going on. This is about 10 o'clock. We're good. But then you see that redevelopment starting to go on here. This is about between 2 to 4 in the afternoon. We're starting to see some development here. Now kind of more over Hampton Roads and maybe along the bay. The mountains are starting to light up again. And then that may actually start to try to push east right here. This is up until 8 p.m. tomorrow evening. You start to see all this rain now starting to kind of maybe push back into places that just got heavy rain. So maybe not quite as an intense a bullseye tomorrow as what we may see today, but there's still going to be enough of a threat where this could be a problem tomorrow. So, flooding is really going to be the main concern. I'm just going to go back and show this right here. I mean, this is really impressive. And again, this is that time period from, I'd say, 8 p.m. tonight to 10 p.m. tonight, really locking in on this whole region here that may see some very, very, very heavy rainfall and some pretty intense flash flooding. And so, again, that's why we've really highlighted this. And like I said, Emporia, don't get too cute with this. Emporia might be in this circle as well, maybe even halfway to Franklin. Williamsburg might be on the edge of this. And again, this will cover probably all the peninsulas up here, Middle Peninsula, Northern Neck. And again, in Maryland, it may come up here. You guys saw the models there. So some of this heavy rainfall might bleed up into Salisbury and Cambridge, Pocomoke City and these areas. So watch out up here later tonight. If you get locked into the heavy rainfall, you're going to get into maybe some pretty bad flooding. And you guys had a lot of rain yesterday, so may not take a lot. So again, we've hit the flooding threat pretty hard. We hit the timing here pretty hard. Most of this rainfall we're expecting is obviously going to fall today and tomorrow, not so much on Friday, but you can kind of see here just the rainfall, some of the average rainfall totals from today through Friday. Still some rain chances as we get into the weekend and early next week, but obviously not nearly the amount of rainfall right now that we're expecting for today and tomorrow. Today and tomorrow really are the big flood threat days. Now, getting into the severe threat, there is a little bit of a severe weather threat. Today, we have the slight risk, and we'll talk more about that here. And it does cover, kind of almost the same areas we're expecting the heavy rainfall to fall today, where we have the slight risk for wind damage and a little bit more of a marginal risk here across Hampton Roads. Could still see some strong storms developing there that we talked about. And maybe we'll show another model simulation here in a second. But it could be a little bit of pockets here of isolated wind damage across parts of Hampton Roads, Southeast Virginia, maybe getting into parts of Northeast North Carolina. But where the storms develop or get a little bit stronger might be in the yellow area here. For tomorrow, the risk is lower for severe weather, more of a marginal risk where it's the storms might cause a few little down trees here and there. One of the problems we're going to be getting into, and I'll kind of focus on today's threat of severe weather, one of the concerns is that the ground is getting so wet. And so especially the areas here in the yellow, a lot of these areas, especially across central Virginia and Maryland, have experienced a lot of rainfall. So the ground's pretty saturated. So if we do start seeing winds of, let's say, 40, 45, maybe even 50 miles per hour, we may see some of these trees coming down a little bit easier than they normally would, just because it has been so wet up through here. And so I think that's part of the reason why we see this slight risk. Is because of the threat of falling trees. And with it getting warm and humid today, we could see some good downburst winds. So this is the area where we're most concerned about. But again, we could see some strong storms popping up here in the southeast. And that's why you see the marginal risk down here for maybe an isolated, gust of pretty strong wind, maybe causing a tree down, here or there. Again, this is kind of the main threat today really is going to be primarily damaging winds. There's really not much of a hail threat. I'm not too concerned about that. It really is going to be the damaging wind that we have to kind of maybe watch out for as a potential there. As far as looking at the reflectivity, kind of the timing of how the storms may play out, this is just a snapshot of the HRRR, one of the high-res models. It's probably doing a pretty good job kind of just showing you how this may bleed through. Don't take it they take it with a grain of salt. The storms may not be exactly, where it shows at the different times, but kind of we were talking about that 4 to 6 time frame. Storms really developing in the west, getting out here towards Farmville, up towards Louisa, maybe starting to get into the I-95 corridor up here near towards just south of Fredericksburg, up in Caroline County. Really getting right on the cusp of Richmond between 4 and 6. And that time frame between 7 and 10, you saw how that I-95 corridor was just completely lit up with heavy rainfall. So that band of heavy rain maybe slowly oozing into South Hill over to Emporia, up through Tri-Cities. It may be trying to start to sneak into Tappahannock if you kind of connect the dots here. And maybe trying to sneak into parts of the northern neck here, Westmoreland and Tappahannock. Essex, we'll have to watch. This may start to try to fill in between 7 and 10. Between 10 and 1, it's slowly shifting back towards the east. And you notice, again, Maryland Eastern Shore kind of getting stuck in it. You guys got a lot of rain yesterday. So, it's almost to Cambridge between 7 and 10. And between 10 and 1, it's just slowly making its way across the Maryland Eastern Shore. So we're going to have to watch out for this. And, of course, it's draped across the lower eastern shore, as well as both peninsulas, middle peninsula and the lower peninsula. Your guys are both under a lot of heavy rain, and it's finally making its way into Norfolk between 10 and 1. And this is going to continue to slowly ease off the coast, move across the south side Hampton Roads, I'd say between probably 1 and 3 in the morning. And then by about 5 o'clock, this should all be offshore. And it's going to eventually ooze down to Elizabeth City, I'd say by about between maybe 3 and 5 in the morning, and then offshore. So a number of the models do try to weaken this as it moves southeast. As the storms kind of move east and southeast, it does weaken this area. We'll see what happens. Just be on your toes. Maybe just watch how this evolves overnight. But again, that real heavy rainfall threat, really is kind of just, I'd say just east of I-95, running up to just west of Williamsburg and up through the Middle Peninsula, Northern Neck. And like I said, I'm a little concerned about Maryland Eastern Shore as well. And you can kind of see how this band is going to slowly make its way across the area. So for tomorrow, again, a lower risk of severe storms, just that marginal risk. Could still see some strong storms developing here and there. Again, the threat for flooding once again, and the ground's so wet, we could get some downed trees. So we get that marginal risk tomorrow for maybe a little bit of wind damage from the storms. Today is not going to be as hot as yesterday, still just because of the humidity. It's going to feel kind of miserable out there. So we just highlighted the fact that the heat index is running between maybe, I'd say 100 to 103. No heat advisories in effect or anything like that. It's just, it's humid out there. We're getting some sun through the clouds. So it may feel kind of miserable, just typical summer heat, but we're not hitting 105. So that's good news. And there is some cloud cover around that's helping a little bit as far as the temperature goes, but the humidity, you guys know, is pretty miserable. And this just kind of, again, looking at the whole week. Again, Thursday, we got another good chance round of showers and storms into, Thursday night, early Friday morning. Another threat, maybe a little bit later Friday night and into early Saturday. And then the rain chances do decrease, especially as you get into Saturday and Sunday, and even to early next week, just some lower rain chances. So we really got to get through today, and we got to get through really mostly, I'd say, through tonight. And also tomorrow. Just because there's going to be more redevelopment tomorrow, we may be dealing with flooding that's already been going on. So tomorrow may just exacerbate flooding in areas that we're seeing flooding or right on the cusp of flooding. Tomorrow might be a problem still. So definitely want to keep our guard up, I would say, all the way through tomorrow evening before we can kind of get out of this event. It's going to take a couple of days. Just kind of highlighting what's happening along the coast. Good news is there's low threat of rip currents today. So that's with the south wind and the wind being a little bit lighter, we're in good shape. Maybe some marginal borderline small craft advisories, but no big wind events here along the coast, which is good as far as just a sustained wind. This is just showing you some of the peak winds, maybe getting up to 15 to 20 knot peak gusts here, across the area later this evening, but nothing too bad, just typical summertime kind of breeziness. And, it is kind of breezy along the coast, maybe, tonight and into early tomorrow, but the winds really do decrease, especially once you get into Friday and Saturday. The weekend looking pretty good on the marine side. So no big marine threats here, maybe some marginal, very close to small craft conditions on the rivers and the bay, but not quite there. But it's marginal, and it's a south to southwest wind, so no threats there. And also no tropical activity expected over the next 7 days. So that's another good sign right now. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll go back here and leave it on our rainfall slide for today, because this is the big story, is what's going to be going on here. And I'll stop the recording.